when I was 11, and he was possessed by the devil.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of The Room Went Dark, the true crime in film, where we discuss film, TV, and documentaries, all based on real events. I'm your host, Lorraine, and I'm joined by my co host, Amalie.
Hello.
Hello. I do apologise if I cough or sound a bit croaky in this. I've got my Phoebe sexy friend's voice going on. Got another cold. And I thought I'd point out, I was editing our copycat episode. And I noticed that I say, yeah, a lot. So I'm going to try and work on not saying that. But it's just, I think it's a thing I do. So like, I am listening, but then I Googled it and it's like, some people might take it as you're saying, come on, hurry up, move along. That's not how I mean it. So yeah. So if that's annoying, I will work on it. So I apologize.
And you're good. I hadn't even noticed it, if I'm honest. I think
I
I sort of said to you, oh God, I think I also do that.
You don't do it as much, but then I was like, oh God, I was listening to it. And I was like, my goodness. And then I noticed that you did it a bit, and I was like, yes, it's not just me. But no, I will work on it. But this is conversation, and I think sometimes, I don't want to sound robotic and try and leave out all what kind of makes us who we are type thing. But
Exactly.
but I will try not to do that every 5 minutes, but I am listening if I don't do it. But anyway, how are you? Sorry, I didn't ask.
I'm good. I'm all right. I'm glad that we're just recording our voices today because
Not our faces.
I look and feel like death a little bit. So
Yay.
yeah.
Yeah,
I think
it's
it's just there's just stuff going around at the moment, isn't there? Like everyone
yeah,
seems
I've
to have
got
caught a
this.
cold recently. You're like, God, it's nearly like flipping April. Well, it's March, but even so.
Yeah, because I had a 7 week cold, got over it in February, and here we are again.
Oh, that's too long.
Yeah, exactly. But for this one, we are going to talk about the devil made me no, the devil
The
on
Devil
trial.
on
We keep saying
Trial.
the devil made me do it. We were literally just talking about that because there is a film, The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It, which is about
Yeah.
the same thing. But we're going to do the documentary, and Amelie's going to take the lead in this one. So tell us all
Yeah.
about it.
Okay, well, the baseline of I guess this film is it's centered around the Glatzels who seem as if they're a normal American family, except for one thing. There's 11-year-old David who says he's possessed by the devil and the devil wants his soul. Um, and there's obviously, as we kind of open it up, there's a lot more to it, but it is based on a real family in America from Connecticut called the Glatzel family. Um, and essentially lots of weird happenings go on. David, who is I think he's the youngest child
Mm.
actually, isn't he? And he's 11 at the time. And so say um gets sort of possessed by the devil. And it all sort of starts when his much older sister Debbie moves in with her partner Arnie into a new house, and they all kind of go off to the various different rooms to do their different chores. Um, and David supposedly sees something and comes running out of the house and is like, I want to go home, want to go home. And from there, what occurs is sort of these, very weird happenings where he starts kind of, so say, being possessed by the devil, cursing at his family, attacking them, and it's all sort of very bizarre. But so it's a documentary, I have to say, before we
Yeah.
get into it, like, because I might be talking about like it's a film and it's not. It's a documentary based on that case, and there's various different people in it. I was quite surprised by how many people there were going to be in it, actually,
What
but
that were involved in it.
that were involved in the
Yeah.
in the the actual like the people that were interviewed. So you had the various kind of you had the detective, I think it was Cooper, um, and one or two others sort of dealing in the case, like the attorney was there. But I don't think I was expecting one, I don't think I was expecting even David to be interviewed, or Arnie actually. Like
I wasn't because yeah, because I Googled it and I was like, well, what's he doing now, this Arnie fella? And I was like, oh, that's him in it because I mustn't have been paying fully attention at one point. And I was
yeah,
like, oh, it's him telling his story
yeah.
as well.
Yeah, and it's still, I feel quite unnerved by it because even with the interviews, to me, the most sane person is Carl, who's the eldest son,
Who wasn't buying it.
who wasn't buying it, same as the dad.
Yeah.
Whereas you then have David, who's the youngest, who is the one that was possessed or allegedly possessed. And then you've got Alan, who's the middle child. Carl's the oldest. And then you've got mum and dad. I've completely forgot. Like dad doesn't come into it a lot at all. He's not because he's not interviewed
No,
in
I
the
think
documentary either, is he?
well, I think when like I suppose the question when watching something like this, are you more the mum? Or are you more the dad? Because the mum was kind of getting in on it. It's like she believed it was happening.
Yeah,
Whereas the dad, because they do that one scene, don't they, where um David is acting up and he just walks in and tells him off to cut it out because he's swearing at the mum and saying all these things.
yeah.
And he just stops,
And he stops. Yeah, yeah,
and what we've seen in other kind of like possessions and all that kind of stuff is it doesn't matter who's talking to you. There, if you're so I think
yeah,
the one I can't remember who says it in it, but they made a really valid point. Now, I'm not a religious person, so I can't say how I would feel about this because I don't believe in any I don't necessarily believe in God. And but there's always part of me like, there's something, but I don't know what it
mm,
is, okay? And when people are really like strongly religious and they believe in God and they think all these things happen because of God, and if you pray and if you do this, that, and the other, you're going to get all basically, what you want and life's going to be great. But then when something like this happens and Arnie, who is the one that killed, what was his name, Alan Bono,
yeah,
and said the devil basically did it, all of a sudden that can't be true. Come on, give me a break. You're turning around and saying the devil made you kill someone. But yet
yeah,
then when we look at stuff about serial killers and murderers and whoever is evil in this world, people then go, the devil. Think about satanic panic. People blame
hmm
everything on the devil. But then when someone comes and says, the devil made me do this, they're telling them they're full of shit. But yeah. So I think it is for me, a lot of it shows how when it comes to religion and when it comes to, the devil and all these certain things, we like to twist it to fit our narrative.
Yeah,
And that is a perfect example of it. Because if you believed in all those evil things, being very religious, then you would believe that the devil made him do it,
sure. Yeah,
you know?
I guess so. Yeah,
But so
yeah.
what's your take on all this kind of stuff?
I'm in the camp that it's bullshit, if I'm honest. Like
Okay.
the something that I mean, partly because I don't it's not that I don't necessarily think that there is forces at play. I do
Mm,
think I'm open to the idea that there might be, you know, spirits that are have negative intentions or whatever, I'm open to that idea because I don't know. I can't say either way. I can't confirm it and I can't, a bit like they were saying in the
mm,
documentary, I can't prove it and I can't deny it. So therefore, I'm open to it being a possibility, I guess. But for me, there were aspects about it, particularly around the language that David was using towards people when he was supposedly under possession.
Yeah.
It felt all too The Exorcist, in my opinion, the whole like cocksucker and all of that kind of stuff. And it did feel like an 11-year-old boy's language as well. Like, I'm pretty sure the devil's not an 11-year-old boy.
Yeah, there was an element of, because I've got a 9-year-old, and sometimes she will say to me, can I tell you what was said? So like someone at school has said something they shouldn't have said.
Yeah,
And the way she says it to me, it's like she's so like excited that she gets to say these things because, we don't, I mean, I swear like a sailor, but as I always say to her, you need to know when you can and can't do it. Like you can't go into school calling teachers names. But
yeah.
at this particular day, some kids had, and it was the C word. So she was
Oh.
like, she says, can I say what it was? And I said, yeah, you can say what it was. And the excitement of like, I just said these words, because she's not allowed to say them. And I felt like there was that kind of element of it for me where he was like doing something you shouldn't do because an 11-year-old shouldn't be speaking to their mother. I mean, nobody should speak to anyone like that,
No.
especially your children talking to you. Um, so there was an element of, there wasn't enough kind of oomph in it for me for it to be like Reagan from The Exorcist. Do you know what I mean? It
Yeah,
just,
but it
and
felt very similar though, didn't it? Like the kind of the
yeah, but,
sounds and
but
the
copycatting
yes,
rather
yeah, very
than,
much a
um,
copycatting.
which we still haven't decided if that's a word or not, did we? Because I
Yeah,
noticed in our other episode, the copycat one, I was like, copycatting, is that word? But it sounds, yeah, it sounds like if I was doing an impression of her.
yeah,
And that's the thing. So I think that David believed it. I do think he believed
really.
it. Yeah,
Okay.
especially when he was older. Like I feel like it might not necessarily that he went through it, but I feel like he went through something and he still believes it,
Yeah.
you know? So that could be like some sort of mental health issue.
Well, there was something that I did look up towards the end. Well, actually, I think Carl mentioned it. I was looking it up, and had spotted it uh whilst I was on Google, and then Carl mentioned it towards the end. And that was um the mum. I don't know why for the life of me I can't remember her name. I'm so sorry, but the mum had been putting Sominex in the food,
Yes.
which
Yes.
could potentially cause hallucinations. I mean, and this is the bizarre thing, right? Is that to me, when Carl's talking about it, I think that's a very logical, rational explanation as to what's been going on.
Mm,
Dad mentions that he's tired all the time, like he's struggling. I mean, but also he could just be tired because he's got like a million kids to look after and he's working a lot and holding down the fort. But there were just some aspects about it, like to me, that made more sense because it would also make more sense in the fact that if David was hallucinating because he'd been ingesting this Sominex in his food on a daily basis,
mm,
then he could then get to adulthood and still completely believe that
yeah.
this had happened, you know? I
Yeah.
think the bit that really does sort of unnerve me is the interview with Arnie, because actually he did come across as like just a really general, like normal human being, like in my opinion. He was very kind of reserved.
Yeah. I think that's why when I was watching it, I was like, oh, hang on, that's the guy that did it. That's the guy that
Yeah,
murdered Alan. And there was that whole thing, wasn't there, where they thought, so he was with Debbie and they thought Debbie and Alan were, messing about or something, didn't they? And
yeah.
so,
So we took it like because to sort of avoid any confusion, there's two Alans. So you've got Alan who's like the middle son,
oh
and
yeah.
then
And
there's
then,
another chap called Alan Bono or
yeah,
Bono, I think,
yeah,
who is Debbie and um Arnie's landlord, but slash friend
yeah,
slash I think boss. I think
yeah,
Debbie
the
worked at
animal
his like dog
place.
groomers or
Yeah.
something, wasn't it? So they were all, it was all kind of, enmeshed in there. Um, and there was a rumor, I believe, that Debbie and Alan Bono had had an affair, and she did actually disclose that to the detective at the time to say, look, we did have a relationship of sorts, but that
Mm.
was long ago and it's over and done with, and there's no hard feelings there. We're all friends. Um, yeah, and so I don't know. It is yeah. I that bit I'm really kind of a bit like,
Because, like, if the whole drugs being put into the food and stuff and slowly kind of like poisoning them, I suppose, the kids and the family, because she kept her food separate. Judy was her name. And
Judy.
I just Googled it.
That's
Um,
gone.
then when Arnie was like, come into me, leave him, like, kind of took the spirit on. And
Yeah,
obviously there was no spirit to take on. So say all this stuff was happening, and David was acting this way because of the stuff he was being given, then there was no demon to take, so to speak. Do you know what I mean? Because
yeah,
obviously Ed and Lorraine Warren come into the picture in this,
yes,
and
classic.
they do not come across very well
They don't, do
whatsoever.
they?
No,
Yeah, I think
compared
they're,
to what was the other one we did? We did The Conjuring, and
yeah,
they come across a bit better in that, but in this, um,
yeah, because this was at a point where the Amityville horrors had already happened, right?
mm,
And so they were kind of at their height of
yeah,
fame at this point. And I think they put it out on like a radio or something like that, hadn't they? And loads of people had called in, and um, I think it was Debbie was one of those people that had called in and said, "Look, my brother is having, we think he's possessed. Like, can you help us?" Um, and it's really, yeah, it's really interesting that everybody, including like Carl, like everyone,
yeah,
all have said, they definitely knew how to work you, They
yeah.
were like con artists essentially.
Yeah, because obviously they made, the mum wanted to make some money out of this and write a book and all that kind of stuff. And I think she said they got something like $4,000, and Ed and Lorraine Warren got like $80,000. And
Right, okay.
yeah, and I think, like, so like I said, I believe that David felt he was going through all this. And if there's a documentary on Prime with um this one of the Lutz's sons. Do you remember so the people that moved in to Amityville, Amityville
Right.
House, and they only lasted 28 days, and one of them was one of the boys, and he does a documentary, and he's basically like, this happened, you know, and he was young too. Um
Yeah.
and they're so like, that's the thing, when David's talking as an adult, and when the Lutz kid, I can't remember his first name, is talking as an adult, they're you can see they really believe it. It doesn't, or they deserve an Oscar for for acting.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You can see they look traumatized, you know. But when they show Ed and Lorraine Warren in things like The Conjuring, they look like these really caring, we're here to help, we just want what's best for you type people.
Mm.
That's the portrayal of the actors. But when I watched them in this, that compassion, that caring, that just wasn't there for me. It just didn't fit the the characters in movies that you see. It just didn't for me. And then when I heard about, first of all, I wasn't surprised with the money thing because that's always what happens. But when I heard about the money thing and how basically they just screwed this family over, you know, um, I feel like that was the real them, you
Yeah,
know.
you
I feel
reckon?
like
You
the
think?
yeah, I do. And I'm not saying that they didn't have she didn't have a certain gift or whatever it is you want to call it, but
Mm.
I think they exploited that family. And people have made money from these types of things, like the Amityville Horror, for instance, And even, I mean, you can't really listen to DeVeo, Butch DeVeo, who was the son that killed his family in the Amityville thing. But he has come out and been like, look, it was all made up. We made it all up. They wanted to make money. And then he got pissed because he didn't get the money and stuff like that. But
Right.
he's a guy that murdered his family. So, you're not necessarily going to believe what he said because he's chopped and changed his story. But I do think they were taken advantage of. If you go by the documentary, and I know, as we've discussed before, when we were doing, I think Monster, wasn't it? When we were talking about Ty, Eileen Warnes's girlfriend, you had a different
Yeah.
opinion of her than I did. And I was like, yeah, but if you watch this, and you said no, and they're like, oh, that type of thing. So you
Yeah,
can
good
watch
point.
these documentaries and you have to kind of realize that they are taking you down a certain path.
Yeah. It's interesting, isn't it? Yeah, I mean, I guess the other sort of aspect is that they could have both cared and also been taking them for all they could. Like, do you know what I mean? I don't know. It's
I I
they're
think
yeah, they're an interesting couple, aren't they?
I
Ed and
think
Lorraine,
though,
it's sort of a bit.
if you screw people over for money, you don't care.
You don't care. Yeah,
You
that's a
don't
good
care.
point.
Like,
Yeah.
it wasn't, I get that they deserved some of it because they were part of the story,
Yeah.
but you don't deserve 80 odd grand and the family, which back then that would have been a
A
hell, I mean, 80
lot
grand,
of
I'd love 80
money.
grand now, but
Yeah.
back then it would have been a hell of a lot more money. And if you cared, you wouldn't take such a chunk,
Yeah.
and then obviously the communication probably started to fade and, so you go in and cause all this, because they were mad at Arnie for saying, come into me, and if all that was true, then that was a great thing he did. Like, do you know what I mean? If this was a real thing, it did exist where you can call a spirit away from a child, then fair
Yeah.
play to him. Like, do you know what I mean? But yeah, they were like fuming. You shouldn't have done that. You
That
know?
was an interesting bit for me as well, though, that in that kind of world like that supposedly is like you don't challenge a
No.
demonic spirit, right? Like it's sort of like, well, you get what you ask for kind of thing. But that Lorraine had said to the detective, she'd like pre-warned him and said, he's done, Arnie's done this and he shouldn't have done that. And she sort of warned the detective that to put on notice for the family that she felt that there was going to be. I think she even said it. She said, let me see if I can find it. She said about it. Kind of saying like there's going to be something like I think it was like injury
Mm,
or by knife, wasn't it, or something like
yeah,
that.
I think she used the word knife.
Yeah. um I've wrote a lot of notes for this for this one. I was like, I did get really into it and I found it really fascinating. My favorite person was Father Maximus, who was the Russian Orthodox priest.
Oh
He was
yeah.
a legend. He just looked like such a cool guy. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know. It's tricky, isn't it? That was it. It said, I see serious injury or death with a knife. And well, yeah, that absolutely happened.
It did, but I again, it's like the cops were like saying, because he was a nice guy and everyone liked him. Well, like I know that's a story you hear a lot when it
Yeah,
comes
as
to
we hear
people
about
who've
the
done
serial
such and
killers,
such.
like,
But I think again, like, the police probably deal with strange, things every day, and then someone goes, "Oh, he's got a demon in him now, so he's going to go and kill someone with a knife."
yeah.
You are going to be,
But
you
to be that
can.
specific about it, and unless she'd forewarned Arnie that she of that as well, and like
Mm.
almost sort of planted the seed, I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, was it all just a big, right? David's been acting like this. Ed and Lorraine Warren have come in, these big, well-known TV personalities. I've now taken the spirit on me because I hear, that's what you can do. Oh, she thinks I'm gonna stab someone. Oh, I mad at this guy because I
Whoopsie.
think he's having an affair with my girlfriend. Whoop, devil made me do it. Like, do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's like, I don't know. And even like when you watch Arnie now, like we were saying, it just doesn't compute.
No, it
The
doesn't.
but at the
I
end of the
mean,
day, what
yeah.
comes down to this is a guy was killed.
Yeah,
A man
but and
didn't deserve to
he
die.
didn't he did so I mean he did serve time for it, didn't he?
Well,
I
wasn't
think
it
it
like
was
a few years, like 5 years or something?
well he I thought he got like 10 to 20,
I
but
think he
he
got
was
10 to 20, but I think
definitely
he
let
only
out on good
served
behavior.
yeah, he only got 5 years, I've written down here.
And then he went on to obviously marry Debbie. The interesting bit, and I couldn't find a cause of death anywhere for this, but that Debbie had an older a son from a previous relationship. His
Hmm.
name was Jason Lee Glatzel. It was he had his mum's surname. And he was born in 1973 and he died in October 2070, 2070, 2007 at only 34. But I'm like, I
Blimey,
don't know
okay.
how he died, or like, I mean, I'm not saying that, maybe Arnie struck again, but I just, it was like an extra one that I found that I was like, oh, that's interesting. Um, but you just think it's so strange. It does, yeah, you just never know, do you? Because
But
how
I
do
think as
you
well in the
convince
moment you
yourself?
don't.
How do you convince yourself that you've, because he said that he didn't even remember it.
Yeah.
He was at the police station and he said, I don't know why I'm here. And they were like, you've murdered your best friend. He was like, I wouldn't do that. I don't, I'm not.
Yeah, he did um have no recollection of it, but again, that's another thing that you hear.
Yeah. Yeah,
I
it's kind of
I
like,
completely, and I get sometimes if you were like passed out drunk on, you've drunk so much alcohol or you've taken so much drugs that you might not
mm.
remember. But
But they said they'd been drinking, right? I don't know. Were
how
there any
much?
drugs involved as well?
I
I
don't know.
didn't see that there were. I just think like even like I've been, massively inebriated in my 20s. I don't think I would ever feel the need to go and then stab someone. Like, do you know what I mean? It just feels so far-fetched to. That's the only bit that I'm just sort of like there must have been some resentment or some tension there between them all. And who knows what had gone on that evening whilst they were all drunk.
Mm,
Whether Debbie and Alan Bono had sort of, been a bit flirty and perhaps maybe
yeah,
subconsciously
triggered
Arnie wasn't
something.
happy about it. I don't know. But yeah. I don't know. It's just yeah. It's all just very odd, isn't it?
I
And
guess
I
it
just
cut.
I just don't. I'm sorry. I think if you kill someone, I don't care if you're under possession, you've still done the deed. Someone's died. Like you,
I
um,
suppose what they're trying to do as well is, when like people get killed in all manners of way. I mean, if you go out and intentionally kill someone because you're a serial killer or you're mad at someone, it's very like this is what happened.
mm,
I think there's and I think sometimes it's why I get frustrated sometimes with the law is there's so many, but I suppose it's needed. There's so many reasons sometimes why people do these things
mm,
that obviously this is quite a bizarre one. Um, but I suppose you have to take all into account because there's obviously, if this is what you're claiming, there's obviously a mental illness aspect of it that you need to look at. Like, when they say, I wasn't sane when I did it, that's another thing that sometimes I think gets thrown around
yeah,
easily.
yeah,
Um, and of course you're not sane when you murder someone, but to what level? Like when people do it out of passion, they walk into a room and they catch their spouse in bed with another person,
mm.
male or female, and you end up just shooting them or stabbing them or something like that. That's in the heat of the moment, and I wouldn't, I don't think I could ever do that.
It's sort of like
A lot of people
removing.
probably don't that do it.
I mean, you'd be freaking fuming, but like it would be so far from my mind to like, do you know
Yeah,
what I mean?
yeah. Like I just wouldn't do it because you know, have him, have him. Like, you know what I mean? You think
Yeah,
I'm ruining
right.
my life
Like,
for this? He's
yeah,
already showed me
exactly.
what I'm worth. You think
Have
I'm
my
ruining my
sloppy
life?
seconds. Yeah, go for it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. But but some people, they get obsessed with their partners. Their partners are
Yeah,
their world,
insane.
their life. They can't do anything, and
There,
even
there
want them
was some,
talking to other people and stuff like that. Whereas we're not like that. We're just like,
yeah, there was
thanks.
something to say, wasn't there? I think it was Carl that mentioned it, that he felt that Arnie was quite possessive over
Yeah.
Debbie,
Mm.
which had been very much left out. Um, but then, like, I feel like, I don't know, I feel like Debbie then goes on to marry him.
Yeah,
So,
she
and they
was
have kids
very,
with it, like, and have kids with him. But then I don't know. I don't know her backstory, and I don't know, with the mum whether she was a bit sort of possessive as well, and they were just kind of used to it. There's just so much to this. I know I feel like we are kind of like bouncing around from
yeah,
different bits, but in essence, that kind of also what it kind of felt like watching it was that there
yeah,
was sort of all these
100%.
different things going on and these different people involved. Um, yeah, it's all just a bit mad, if I'm honest. There
Yeah.
was something about the trial as well when the judge basically had sort of said like, I'm not going with this. The devil made me do it crap. Like you're
Mm.
being tried as, someone that has, yeah, killed another person.
Well, how can you
And
prove
apparently
it?
there were like about six priests in the courtroom that all just like stood up and left, never to be seen again.
Exactly. Like,
And you're like,
how can they?
why were they there?
But how can you prove it? Like, that's the problem when there's no evidence. You can't prove something like this. You can only listen to the words of people like Ed and Lorraine Warren and decide whether you believe what they have, you know,
I
discovered over the years, and is it all bullshit?
Yeah, I just think sometimes as well though, like when you use like, the insanity card or the devil card, like for me it's a way to kind of take out that personal responsibility of what you've done. It's that kind of like I didn't have capacity,
Yeah. Not my
therefore
fault.
I can't be
Yeah.
tried for this.
Yeah.
You know, but also you know it still happened and you
Yeah.
still
You still did it.
did it, whether you had capacity or not, like
No.
there has to be some form of justice. So what I don't blame the judge for because I think they went with manslaughter in the end, didn't they, rather
Mm.
than murder. And fine, you know, he still gets time in prison, but equally, I mean, I don't know if Alan Bono had family. I don't, whether there were parents still around but it just, yeah, it just makes me quite sad, like this poor guy. And I think Carl says this towards the end. Like Carl says it toward the end where he sort of says like, I feel awful, but like I try not to think about it because actually when you take out all of the crap about the devil and all the rest of it, actually an innocent man got killed for no reason,
Mm.
you know?
Yeah, at the end of the day, yeah, someone died
Yeah.
that didn't deserve it.
Yeah. But
So,
yeah. But it's interesting, isn't it? You've got David and you've got Alan, who's the middle child, and they are
yeah.
both very much, sticking to their story that David was possessed and this happened, and you know, I think they were saying about like um when like I think David's mother had got like the priest round to bless the house, and I thought it had all, worked and it was all good.
Yeah.
But that had just been the beginning. And then like David wakes up at like 3 a.m. and he's screaming and the house starts rumbling. David says it's like someone's driven a truck into it, and Alan says it's kind of like a UFO's landing on top of the house. Lights are flashing on and off, things are falling and breaking, and the banging happens for about 30 to 40 seconds, and then everything's quiet. And Alan saying I was petrified. We've got a ghost problem. Um, and then of course that's when they kind of get Ed and Lorraine Warren involved. Um, and even then, but their sort of in their first sort of impressions of Ed and Lorraine are good. Like Alan says, Ed Warren was a really nice man, made us feel really comfortable and reassured. Lorraine again, I think was, just very pleasant and very lovely. Um, I think then the weird bit, I think, the bit that Carl questions is when they start doing the tapes, but they're doing it in front of David.
Yeah,
And he says, why did they not send this 11-year-old kid, boy out of the room, go and play, go and do
wasn't appropriate.
something,
Yeah,
have the conversations, because you're almost planting the seed, of what he kind of needs to do, right?
yeah. Well,
Um,
that's teaching him, isn't it? It's like
yeah,
you should just have recordings on, and then it just if it happens to capture something, it captures something.
yeah.
But when you, because as well with children, they want to give you what you want. They want to say the right things and do the right things. And if you're saying to, telling them they're this, and and plus he's getting attention,
What I was
and
about to say, any
you know,
tension's good attention, right? Even
yeah,
even if you're pretending that you're
even if it's
possessed by the
bad, yeah,
devil.
yeah. But
The bit that I did you catch the 5 steps according to the Warrens? Did you? I was quite interested by that. So you had
oh
like
yeah,
permission,
yeah,
intestation, oppression, and then possession. So the permission is like kind of like if you do like a Ouija board or something
mm,
like that, like something that provides permission for the spirit to, you know, you know, getting cling onto you or something. And then I can't remember what intestation was, but it was that kind of like that sort of beginning to sort of like have a relationship, I guess, with it. And then oppression was sort of when the entity starts to take over your free will. And then in very rare circumstances, the entity takes full control and then that's possession. And the person that was going through that was the Warren's grandson, who again seemed like a very like nice,
yeah.
normal chap. Like compared to say, like for me, like David and Alan, the middle child, like I these kind of wide-eyed kind of, it felt like they were
Yeah,
trying to convince me.
yeah.
I just didn't believe them at all. There were aspects with both of them that I just thought, no, you're full of shit. You know? Whereas I think the grandson was really interesting. Like the grandson of the Warrens was interesting because he absolutely like believed it and he loved his
Oh, well, he was
grandparents
on
and
board, but then he's got financial gain
well, that's
from
true.
it
Yeah, that's a
because
very good
the
point.
Warren stuff has been bought by that comedian Matt Rife. I don't know what they're going to do with it. Open
Oh,
up.
really?
Yeah, yeah. I think we mentioned that in the country, and I can't remember. But yeah, he bought all of it, like the museum and stuff. He's going to make a
What?
museum. Yeah, and I think he's turning the house into an Airbnb. And yeah, yeah, it's
Okay.
crazy. But yeah, I think the whole thing is just sad, and like um Alan himself, he didn't have like family, but he had a sister, and she owned the kennels
Oh,
that he
Alan Bono,
worked in.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Um.
Okay,
So
interesting.
yeah, so that would have been for her, 5 years. Her
Yeah,
brother's still dead.
yeah, there's nothing, is it, when you think
No,
about it?
it's not. Say the whole thing is true, and it was the devil and all this kind of stuff, and at the end of the day, like we said, there's still a young guy. He was only 40
Yeah,
who is dead because of it, and while there was a punishment, it's not enough. And I think the fact that he got
no.
out after 5 years kind of shows that people think, well, maybe, they're kind of buying into it because lots of people stab people and murder people and they're in jail for the rest of their lives,
Yeah, exactly.
So
Yeah.
but that's, trying to go down the whole justice system. um, but I
Yeah,
think coming away from this, we can easily say that, yeah, it's a bit of a stretch.
I think so. Yeah, I can't. I'm not a believer on this occasion, if I'm honest. I love this kind of
Oh, I love paranormal stuff. Yeah,
paranormals. I love them, but I just, yeah, for me with this documentary, I'm just like, I don't believe it. I think they believe it,
yeah.
but I don't believe it. I'm with Carl. with Carl and the dad on this.
I was more with Carl. I'll be honest with you. Yeah, the dad just looked freaking
Well,
fuming.
he just wasn't in the
Yeah,
documentary, was he? He wasn't I
yeah,
don't blame him, yeah.
but
Well,
yeah,
no, I think he died. Actually, I think
yeah,
he died, hadn't he?
yeah. They both did.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, let us know what you think. Do you believe the devil?
Do
Is
you
it?
believe in the devil? Have you been possessed?
Have you been? That would be an interesting one, wouldn't it?
I would love to
Um,
find out. I'd be really intrigued. Maybe we could like read some out if there's ever been any like
yeah, yeah. Send us your possession stories if you have possession. It's a hard word to
position.
say. I can't even say it. But yeah, send us any stories you might have on theroomwentdark@gmail.com because we would be very interested
Yes.
to hear about any of that. And of course, you can follow us on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and Threads as The Room Went Dark. And I think we're back next week with the story of the Utah cabin murders, where Amalie wasn't happy with me that she had to watch that film.
Anyone that's seen it will understand that.
Exactly. All right, then we will chat to you then. Bye.
Okay, bye.